Panther-like beast spotted in UK. Couple films mysterious big cat in Devon. A British couple were left astonished after recording what they believed to be a big cat prowling through the Devon countryside, and the leading expert says the creature's movements matched that of a panther. Now let's explore this story in detail and uncover the facts on our AI podcast.
I want you to close your eyes for just a second.
Okay.
And picture the absolute peak of civilization. You know you're on a weekend getaway. You're at a luxury hotel in Dartmouth down in Devon.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, you've just finished a spa treatment, so your muscles are basically jelly at this point.
The absolute dream.
Right, and you're wearing one of those fluffy white dressing gowns that makes everyone look like a cloud.
And probably those little disposable slippers that are just impossibly comfortable.
Exactly, the little slippers. So you are sitting in a conservatory bar, looking out over a perfectly manicured golf course.
Mm-hmm.
And you are holding a glass of chilled Prosecco.
I mean, it is the definition of safety. It's this domesticated paradise. The biggest threat you're facing is, what, maybe a lukewarm scone?
Or a rogue slice from a golfer on the 9th hole.
Right, yeah.
Exactly. It's a bubble, a very safe, very manicured bubble. And then you look up.
Okay.
You look past the putting green, maybe about 200 meters away toward the tree line, and that bubble just pops.
Because walking across that English country garden scene is something that looks like it belongs in the Jungle Book.
Yeah, that juxtaposition, the Prosecco versus the predator, that is exactly where we're starting today.
It's such a wild image, and it's a fascinating case study that really challenges our entire understanding of the British countryside.
It really does. So welcome, everyone. Today we are doing a deep dive into a really recent sighting. This was captured by Karen Carter and her husband.
Right.
And we're basing this on the analysis in the source material titled Shadow of the Panther, the Devon Big Cat Sighting.
A really comprehensive breakdown.
It is. And our mission today is pretty simple. We are going to look at the footage, the eyewitness accounts, and the expert breakdown to answer a question that honestly sounds a bit crazy, but might just be true.
Are there black leopards breeding in Devon?
Right.
And we're going to treat this like a forensic investigation today. We really need to move past the sensational tabloid headlines, monster on the moor type stuff.
The classic British tabloid panic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We need to look at the actual biology, the biomechanics, and the genetics. Because when you strip all that hype away, the data it's actually quite unsettling.
Unsettling is definitely the right word for it. So let's go back to that conservatory.
Yeah.
Set the scene for us. This wasn't some blurry, shaky cam footage taken by a guy stumbling out of a pub at 2 a.m., right?
Far from it.
Yeah.
And that's exactly why this specific case has caught the attention of serious researchers, like Rick Minter, for example. The witnesses, Karen Carter and her husband, they were in this state of relaxed observation. They were just celebrating a birthday.
Right. So they were sober, calm, just sitting still.
Completely still. And our source material mentions something very specific about them. They describe themselves as keen wildlife watchers.
Right. Why does that detail matter so much in this context?
It matters a lot because of how our brains process images.
Yeah.
Psychologists talk about this concept of search images.
Search images.
Yeah. So if you're used to watching wildlife, your brain basically has a catalog. You know what a fox looks like, the trot, the bushy tail, so, the sort of shambling gait of a badger. You definitely know the silhouette of a domestic cat.
So you have a mental checklist ready to go.
Exactly. And when these two looked out at the fairway, roughly 200 meters away, their mental checklist just failed.
It came up blank.
Yeah. Karen Carter specifically said she was confused by the sheer size of the animal.
The sheer size, right.
Her brain literally couldn't map any known British animal onto the shapes she was seeing out there.
That's that classic glitch in the Matrix moment, isn't it? When you see something that just fundamentally shouldn't be there. They described a large, dark figure moving really stealthily through the vegetation. And unlike most people who would just freeze or point and say, hey, what was that up? Karen actually had the presence of mind to pull out her phone and film it.
Which is huge. She captured a 36-second video clip.
36 seconds?
Yeah. Now, we have to be honest here with you all. It is filmed on a phone. At a distance.
Right. It's not a National Geographic 4K documentary.
No, definitely not. To the untrained eye, it's basically a black shape moving against a green background.
Yeah, I've seen it. It's definitely something. But this is where the expert analysis really comes in. We are looking at the work of Rick Minter, who is a big cat researcher and podcaster. He didn't just look at the video and say, oh, cool cat. He broke it down frame by frame.
Yeah, you did.
So what is he seeing that I'm missing when I just watch it on my screen?
Well, Minter focuses on two main areas: morphology, which is the physical build of the animal, and behavior.
Okay, let's start with morphology then.
So he identifies 4 specific traits that separate this animal in the video from, say, a dog or a really large house cat.
Okay, walk us through them. What's the first one?
First is the body length. He notes it has a very long tubular body.
Tubular, okay.
Second is the apparent bulk. This isn't a skinny, rangy animal like a greyhound. It has real mass to it.
Right, that's heavy.
Third, the legs are thick and powerful. But the fourth point, this is the one that really gets the experts interested, the tail.
It is always about the tail, isn't it?
It really is. Think about a dog for a second. Dogs wag their tails.
Sure.
They hold them up high, or maybe tucked between their legs if they're scared. Even when a dog is just walking it off, the tail is usually doing something expressive.
It's moving around. And house cats.
House cats use them for balance, sure, but they're usually quite thin and sort of slicky. Minter points out that the animal in this video has a very thick, long tail.
Okay.
And crucially, he notes exactly how it hangs. It's low, it's heavy, and it curves up just slightly at the very end.
Oh, like a J shape almost.
Exactly. That is a classic feline counterbalance. It's a rudder.
So it's built like a big cat.
Yeah.
But I can already hear the skeptics listening to this right now.
Oh, yeah?
And I'm kind of with them, honestly. They're screaming it's 200 meters away. Maybe it's just a really big, well-fed, feral tomcat, and the perspective is just messing with us.
That is the scale argument, and it is the single hardest thing to overcome in any kind of video analysis. We will get to how we verify size in a bit. But Minter argues that even if you ignore the size for a second, just throw size out the window.
Okay.
The movement itself is wrong for a domestic cat. This is where the biomechanics come in, and this part is just fascinating.
He talks about the stealthy gait, right?
He does. He describes the movement as having a deliberate nature.
Deliberate.
Yeah, think about a domestic cat, even a feral one out in the woods. They tend to trot or scamper. They stop, they look around, they start again, they bounce a little bit.
Right, they're a bit jerky.
But this animal in the video was prowling.
And prowling implies intent. It's not just walking from A to B, it's hunting.
Exactly. Large predators are massive energy conservers. They do not bounce. Minter points out that you can actually see a specific biomechanical rhythm in the footage.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, a rolling motion of the shoulders.
Yeah.
The scapula rises and falls with every single step.
Oh, that classic big cat shoulder roll. You see it in tigers at the zoo, right? It looks like liquid flowing under the skin.
That is a perfect analogy. It's liquid.
Yeah.
It's a physiological trait of the Panthera genus. It's designed for explosive power.
Wow.
A Labrador just doesn't move its shoulders like that. A house cat doesn't have the sheer mass to create that visual rolling effect.
Right, it's too light.
So Minter's conclusion, based purely on how it moves, is that we are looking at a black leopard.
Okay, let's just pause right there for a second. A leopard.
Yeah.
We are not talking about a wildcat or a lynx. We are talking about a tropical apex predator. But in the UK, we hear the word panther thrown around constantly, right?
All right.
The beast of Bodmin is always called a panther. Are we talking about the same animal here?
This is actually a huge point of confusion for a lot of people. Panther isn't actually a species.
It's not.
No, it's a bucket term. So in South America, if someone says black panther, they're talking about a black jaguar.
Oh, okay.
In Africa or Asia, and allegedly in the UK, a black panther is a melanistic leopard.
Melanistic. That is the genetic keyword here.
Yes. Melanism is a genetic mutation. It's basically the exact opposite of albinism.
Right.
Instead of lacking pigment, the animal has an overabundance of melanin, which is the dark pigment. So fun fact for you.
Yep.
If you were to get close to this animal in Dartmouth, which again, please do not do that.
Do not approach the apex predator.
But if you did, and you shined a really bright flashlight right on its coat, you would actually still see the leopard spots.
Really? They're still there?
Yes, the rosettes are absolutely still there. They're just hidden by the super dark black background of the fur. It's like a watermark on black paper.
That is terrifyingly cool, but here is where my brain just hits a brick wall.
Okay.
Let's assume Minter is completely right. It's a black leopard. How on earth is it there in Devon? Did it just escape from a zoo last Tuesday?
If it were a zoo escape, we would definitely know about it.
Yeah.
Zoos are high security facilities, and a missing leopard would be national news instantly.
Right. They'd shut down the highways.
Exactly. The theory that Minter, and honestly most researchers subscribe to, is much more historical. It goes all the way back to the swinging 60s and the 70s.
Ah, the era of chaotic pet ownership.
Truly chaotic.
Yeah.
Before 1976, the laws in the UK regarding exotic pets were lax, to say the least.
Just non-existent, basically.
You could literally walk into Harrods department store in London and buy a lion cub.
That is insane to think about now.
You could buy a leopard and just keep it in your garden shed in Surrey.
Yeah.
It was a massive status symbol.
That sounds like a recipe for absolute disaster.
And it was. So the government finally had to step in, and they passed the Dangerous Wild Animals Act of 1976.
Okay.
This act basically said, look, if you want to keep these animals, you need high security fencing, you need massive insurance policies, and you need an expensive license.
And I'm guessing that wasn't cheap for the average person keeping a puma in their backyard?
It was prohibitively expensive. So the prevailing theory is that many owners faced with the choice of either putting their beloved pet down or paying thousands of pounds they just didn't have.
They took a third option.
They drove out to the countryside, to places like Dartmoor or Exmoor or Bodmin Moor, and they just opened the cage door.
They freed them. Yeah.
So we had this seed population released in the late 70s.
Yeah.
But wait, that was 50 years ago.
Right.
Leopards don't live that long, do they?
Yeah.
Those original Harrods pets have got to be long dead.
Correct. A leopard in the wild might live maybe 12 to 15 years tops.
Okay.
So we absolutely aren't seeing the original pets from the 70s. We are looking at their grandchildren or great-grandchildren.
But wouldn't they breed out? This is the biology part that I just don't quite get.
Anyway.
Well, if you release a few black leopards and maybe a few normal spotted ones, wouldn't the black ones just disappear over time? Or wouldn't the population just completely collapse from inbreeding?
So this is the specific biological nugget that Minter drops that just blows the dilution theory right out of the water. He calls it breeding on black.
Breeding on black. It sounds like a heavy metal album, but what does it actually mean biologically?
So in leopards, melanism is a recessive trait. Usually you need 2 copies of the gene to show it.
Like blue eyes in humans. Exactly. But Minter explains that if you have a population where the black trait is already established, like our small group of escapees,
Right.
and 2 black leopards mate, they will produce entirely black offspring.
So it fixes the trait permanently.
Exactly. If a male black leopard meets a female black leopard, you do not get spotted cubs. You get black cubs.
Wow.
And here's the real kicker. In the dense British woodlands, being black is actually a massive evolutionary advantage.
Oh, for camouflage.
Precisely. If you are a spotted leopard on the African savanna, you blend in with the dry grass. But in a dark, shadowy pine forest in Devon,
Black is the perfect cloak.
it is. So nature might actually be actively selecting for the black coats.
That makes so much sense.
It explains exactly why we don't really see spotted leopards in the UK. The panther phenotype is being genetically maintained and even favored by the environment.
That is a wild concept. We're talking about a cryptic population that is adapting to the British landscape in real time, maintaining a specific look over half a century.
It is literally evolution happening right under our noses.
Yeah.
Or, right behind our golf course.
Yeah, right behind the putting green. And we have to look at the geography here too, right? Dartmouth isn't an island. This isn't happening in a vacuum.
No, definitely not.
The source mentions Bodmin Moor.
Yeah, so Dartmouth is about 50 miles from Bodmin Moor. Now, Bodmin is essentially ground zero for UK big cat legends.
The Beast of Bodmin.
Exactly. The source notes that since the 1970s, there's that date again.
Always the 70s.
There have been over 60 sightings recorded in that specific area.
60. I mean, that's a significant data set. That's not just 1 or 2 crazy claims.
And the consistency is what really matters here. Witness testimony, as a rule, is notoriously unreliable.
Oh, sure.
If you ask 10 people to describe a bank robbery, you'll get 10 completely different descriptions of the suspect.
One guy says he was 6 foot, the other says 5'2".
Right. But here, over several decades, people are describing the exact same thing. Large, black, long tail, stealthy movement.
So Karen Carter's video isn't just a random clip in isolation. It's a data point in a 50-year trend.
It's corroboration. It is a piece of a much larger puzzle. But, and here is where we have to be responsible analysts for a minute.
Always a catch.
Rick Minter includes a very important caveat about this video. He is a serious researcher. He's not a conspiracy theorist.
Right. So the issue of scale. We're back to the how big is it really question.
Yes. Without a reference point, our eyes just lie to us. Perspective is a cheat. There's a famous optical illusion called forced perspective.
Oh, like when a cat is closer to the camera than the background, so it looks like a giant monster.
Exactly. Think of all those tourist photos where people are pretending to hold up the Leaning Tower of Pisa.
Right, they're just standing closer to the lens.
Exactly.
So how do we actually prove it then? Is there a way to scientifically say, yes, that is definitively a leopard?
Ideally, you do a physical reconstruction.
Yeah.
You go out to that exact spot on the golf course in Dartmouth. You find the specific tree or bush the animal walked past in the video, and you physically measure the width of that trunk.
Oh, okay, just simple geometry then.
Right. Let's say the tree trunk is exactly 50 centimeters wide. You look at the video frame where the animal passes the tree. Does the animal block out the whole trunk?
And if, yes, the animal is wider or longer than 50 centimeters.
Exactly. If you can do that, you have solid mathematical proof of the animal's true size.
And without that,
Without that ground truthing, as they call it, we are stuck relying on the witness's perception of its sheer size and the expert's analysis of the body proportions.
right.
Minter fully acknowledges this. He says the animal appears large and the movement is undeniably feline. But without a ruler right next to it, we really can't say case closed.
But I keep coming back to the witness's confusion in the moment.
Yeah.
If it was just a house cat, wouldn't they just say, oh, look at that cat over there? The fact that they were so baffled suggests it really didn't fit their mental model of any domestic animal.
That is a very strong point. It's cognitive dissonance. When we see something familiar, we process it instantly without thinking.
Right, a dog is a dog.
But when we see something that breaks the rules of our environment, like a 60-pound cat walking past a sand bunker, our brain basically stutters.
It glitches out.
And that stutter is exactly what Karen described experiencing.
So let's talk about the implications of all this.
Okay.
Let's say Minter is completely right. Let's say there is an active breeding population of black leopards right now in Devon.
Mm-hmm.
Why aren't we seeing them more often? Why aren't they walking down the high street in broad daylight? Or, why aren't they eating golfers?
That is what's known as the apex predator paradox. People just naturally assume that if there were lions out in the woods, we'd be getting attacked constantly.
It's the Hollywood movie version of nature.
Right, but look at mountain lions in Los Angeles, for example.
Oh, yeah, they have a huge population there.
They live right in the Hollywood Hills, surrounded by millions of people,
Hmm.
and they are almost never seen.
They're ghosts.
They are absolute masters of avoidance. They hunt at dawn and dusk. They stay deep in the brush. They generally want absolutely nothing to do with human beings.
And if a population of leopards has managed to survive in the UK for 50 years, they've obviously done it by being the most stealthy, elusive animals on the island.
Exactly. They've learned the rules of surviving near us.
And the UK has plenty of food for them.
Okay.
Right. I mean, we're not exactly short on deer.
Oh, the deer populations in the UK are at record highs right now.
Mm-hmm.
Muntjac, deer, roe, deer, huge rabbit populations, pheasants everywhere.
The buffet is wide open.
The buffet is fully stocked.
Mm-hmm.
They have absolutely no reason to attack humans or honestly even risk attacking livestock all that often. They have plenty of natural wild prey, which really helps keep them completely off our radar.
So if we put it all together, we have a plausible food source. We have a plausible origin story with the 1976 Act.
Right.
We have a genetic mechanism with breeding on black to keep them hidden. And now we have this video evidence showing the actual biomechanics. It's really becoming less of a myth and much more of a working scientific hypothesis.
That is exactly the shift we are seeing in the field right now. It's moving out of cryptozoology, which is, often lumped in with Bigfoot and the Loch Ness Monster.
With tinfoil hat stuff, yeah.
And it's moving firmly into the realm of actual zoology. It's becoming a biological question now, not a paranormal one.
You know what I really love about this whole story is how it completely changes the way you look at the landscape.
How so?
Well, the UK is so mapped. Every single inch is owned or fenced or Google Earth Ed. We really feel like we have total absolute control over our environment.
And this story just challenges that control completely. It pokes a massive hole in it.
It completely does. The idea that something wild, something cruelly dangerous and untamed is living right there in the margins of our manicured golf courses. It's thrilling.
It suggests that the wild isn't just a place you drive to visit. It's not just restricted to the high moors or the designated national parks.
Right.
It's right there, 200 meters from the Prosecco bar.
It is a profoundly humbling thought. We build our little fences and our fairways and our spas, but nature just flows right through them anyway.
And Minter makes a really great point about why we should care about this specific video, regardless of the final outcome.
What's that?
He says this kind of footage invites us to look closer at our surroundings, even if it miraculously turns out to be a giant feral cat, which again Minter heavily doubts.
Sure.
The mere act of observing nature with that level of intense curiosity is incredibly valuable.
It re-enchants the world a little bit, doesn't it? It makes a standard Sunday walk in the woods feel just a little bit more electric.
It definitely does. It adds a permanent layer of mystery to the landscape. It forces you to actually be present in the moment.
So where does this leave you, the listener? If you are heading down to Devon or Cornwall this summer for a nice relaxing holiday, should you be genuinely worried?
Well, please don't panic. You are statistically much, much more likely to be hit by a stray golf ball than to be eaten by a panther.
Good to know.
These animals, if they really are out there, want to avoid you at all costs. But that said, keep your eyes open.
And you want to look for the movement right. That is the big takeaway here.
Yes. Don't just look for a dark shape. Look for the flow.
The flow.
Look for that heavy, deliberate shoulder-rolling gait. Look for the tail that acts like a solid rudder, not just a flicky string.
And maybe if you do see something out there, don't just stand there and stare at it.
Hit record on your phone immediately. And please try to get a tree or a fence post in the shot for scale. Scientists will absolutely thank you for it.
Very good advice. You know, usually at the end of these deep dives, I try to wrap everything up with a neat little bow. But today, I am just left with that opening image we talked about.
The Prosecco and the Predator.
Exactly. The remarkably thin veneer of civilization we all rely on.
It is so much thinner than we like to think.
It really is. And the thought for you to take away today is this. Maybe somewhere in a thicket in Devon, right at this very second, there is a pair of yellow eyes just watching a golfer tee off.
Just waiting for the sun to go down.
Breeding on black in the shadows of the ninth hole.
It's a terrifying and wonderful thought.
It really is. Well, that is all for this deep dive into the shadow of the panther. Thank you so much for joining us. Watch your back on the back nine.
Keep watching the tree lines.
Catch you next time.
Okay, one question for you. Could the creature filmed in Dartmouth truly be a black leopard? Or are we witnessing another case of mistaken identity fueled by Britain's long history of big cat legends? Don't forget to comment it. Thanks.